Over recent weeks, BC has been hit by a slew of cyber attacks. You may have heard of them, you may even have been affected. Let's go back to April 28th. London Drugs says it was hit by a major attack on its systems. Nearly 80 locations across 4 provinces shut down. And not just the retail store. The post office and pharmacies were closed, and pharmacists could only fill urgent prescriptions. Were you told to go somewhere else?
To get a new prescription from my doctor to go to another pharmacy.
London Drugs locations reopened after about a week, and we'll get back to them in a second. But there was another major attack just a few days later, this time on the BC government itself. On May 10th, the province said there had been a sophisticated cyber attack on its systems. 3 separate attempts to breach security were detected. There was no evidence that the attack had succeeded, but the province said they believed a state or state-sponsored actor was behind it.
The only kind of level of being able to do what they were seeing and covering up the tracks is the hallmarks of a state actor or a state-sponsored actor.
Then, on May 22nd, yet another attack. The First Nations Health Authority said it had been hit and that some personal employee information was likely impacted. And remember that London Drugs attack? Well, we got an update on that too. The company confirmed it had been the victim of a ransomware attack. Cyber criminals were threatening to leak London Drugs data online on the dark web if the company didn't pay the ransom. And that could include employee data. Now, London Drugs said it wouldn't pay, and now some of their files have been released. Okay, so at this point we've talked about the dark web, ransoms being paid, and international threat actors. So what is it exactly that we're looking at here?
Unfortunately, it's becoming very common, and although I'm not particularly pleased to have 2 significant cyber attacks emerge in my first couple weeks on the job, it's not a real surprise.
Governments and private companies right around the world are being hit. Last year, ransomware companies collected $1 billion in payments from people trying to keep their data safe. So what's being done? We asked the Premier.
Government processes for core government have included upgrading our defenses, which enabled us to detect the attacks we were facing at the provincial level. There will always be challenges like this, but to prevent as many of them as possible, because when we talk about the information that these agencies have, whether it's health information or personal financial information, it's a big deal for British Columbians.
It's scary to think the data you share could be compromised, and in some cases, the motivations of these attackers aren't known. The attack on the province wasn't a ransomware attack. They didn't make any kind of demand. So what do they want with your personal data? Well, at this point, we can't exactly say. But one expert says going forward, it's critical to minimize the amount of data that is shared.
And one of the things we can do to safeguard these potential harms and breaches of these data sets is to make sure that the data in those data sets is not so extensive. I think that's really one thing that I'd like to hammer home.
The experts we spoke to echo the same point. As these kinds of attacks are becoming more and more common, companies and government institutions will have to adapt. Ghoussoub, CBC News, Vancouver.